What's up, everybody? Peace, 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 people. I really wanted to get back to talking about the birthright citizenship because I think it's a very, very important topic. This is going to be the biggest scenario or decision made by the Supreme Court coming up in June, and that's just 6 months away. That time is really going to pass by, and I just want Americans to know, specifically Indigenous American Blacks, to understand why it is imperative that we claim our birthright and we do not allow everybody to claim our birthright because it was not designated to them. And it seems as if everybody has forgot about us altogether when they're talking about their plights here. They don't mind using us for their advancement and for protection, but they don't want to bring us up or acknowledge us, is what I'm noticing. And people are expecting us to just work for them. And that's just not my mindset. My mindset is to protect what we have earned. Literally, we have relatives, ancestors who have bled and died for the rights that we have gained and earned and warranted. Other people that have acquired this notion of citizenship up until this point, it was not earned. It was just hustled or given, handed out like pieces of candy. And that mindset of having this go on for so long now has got us up in a pickle to where we have a lot of people that are here that do not like Americans. They do not love America. They are entitled. They're ungrateful. They're disrespectful, and they're coming sideways, in particular to Americans such as myself, Indigenous American Blacks, with all these expectations for us to be on their side. Hey, what's up, Sheena? Thank you for being here. And I just want to let everybody know that a lot of Black Americans that are not immigrants are in support of what Trump is doing. They may not come out and say it because it is considered taboo for us to stand in our own lane of thought. We have been brainwashed and handled by the Democrats for a number of years since I can remember. And now we are attempting to break free from the psychological hold and warfare presented to us by the Democrats. Democrats do not represent me. They do not represent my family. They don't represent people that hold true to the notion that this is our home, this is our plight. Everything that we've done in America is ours to claim. We do not want to share with our history and our advancements and achievements to everybody that decides to just show up and appear in America. Those days are done. Too much of being open and giving people the benefits of the doubt, having all this humanity for people when they show us none. People disrespect us continuously, and at some point we have to put our foot down. So this Llhan Omar, who is declaring that the 14th Amendment is her birthright, no, I want her to know, and everybody that's associated with her and the mindset of that, to understand that no, that was never meant for you. You weren't here back when it was established. The people it was meant 4 is for Black Americans or Indigenous American Blacks. Some like to call themselves FBA or ADOS and other names, but not African American. We are banishing that name because people have hustled it alongside of the birthright citizenship. They hustled that term. They hustled the birthright citizenship. They've been scamming the government with the assistance of the Democrats. And I'm so glad that all this stuff is coming out in the open. I'm just so pleasantly surprised that all their tricks and schemes have come out into the forefront to where no one can hide from what has happened, and that hopefully most of these people will be held accountable for what they're doing. How you doing, Leonard? Judah, let me give you your wrench. Thank you for showing up. I really appreciate you. I'm going to make you a mod over here too. What I want to go through is a number of things today. I really want this video to kind of really set off the next year. So I'm going to kind of take my time and really go through some stuff that I really want to go through. I think that too long, we never had to consider the importance of this birthright claim as Indigenous Black Americans. We just kind of took it for granted, and it only became an issue when Trump kind of said he's putting the brakes on the birthright citizenship. He's putting the brakes on known access of scams brought forth by everyone around the world. And I think that, he deserves credit for recognizing that we have been everybody's fool for a long time, and that this America will not survive the way in which it stands. So we're going to go through a number of things. The first thing I want to go through, which is really shocking, actually, there was breaking news not that long ago where there was 4 people suspected in an LA plot to do terror for the beginning of next year or New Year's Eve. I want to go through that, and I want it to be understood that, obviously we have a number of people that have other ulterior motives on harming us as Americans on our soil. They do not have allegiance to America as many other immigrants do not. They have allegiances to wherever they came from. And I really hope that, people wake up and understand not everybody over here is for the right reason. This is why Trump is putting his foot down and making sure that people that are here deserve to be here, and they're benefiting America moving forward. There's a lot of host of people that do not. And let's look at the breaking news before I get back to Llhan. Omar, we're going to talk about the latest breaking news real quick. Please hit the like button, please. You said you warned us about all these tethers. I did. I'm glad you're giving me credit. For the longest time, I was misunderstood. And it's funny how things have circled back around to showcase my truth. I don't mean that every immigrant is bad for America, because there are some people that understand the preciousness of America, the blood, sweat, and tears, and the fights and everything. It's just that there's far too many others that don't give us credit, that do not respect America, and that are here to take over America. They couldn't build in their own home countries. They did not want to face their own monsters of governments and other tribalism type of things that's going on, and other corrupt situations that's going on. So they thought it would be much easier just to hijack and replace Indigenous American Blacks, to confuse us and keep us held down, while they stepped over us. So they used that as a strategy to displace us and trick us out of our own position here as Indigenous American Blacks. Of course, you have Pan-Africanism that's been focused on getting us to go somewhere we're not from, while at the same time, all the immigrants are looking at America as their homeland. They would like to make it their homeland. They would like to make it their home. They don't want us to realize that their heaven on earth is America. And they want to, again, swap places with us. They want us to do a switcheroo with them. They want us to replace them, and they replace us. And we're not going to allow that to happen. I want to ignite the minds of people to understand how special we are here in America, how our birthright really keeps us protected, and we need to make sure that it stays protecting us. And this is why I believe the beginning of why Trump needs to do different things. Look at this news report. Oh yeah, fair use of all videos that I show under the Copyright Act of 1976, I believe, and it's for information, education, entertainment, all the above, not meaning to impose, but to inform. You said, I told you before that things you talked about 3 years ago to present is talked about now. We are slowly waking up. I'm so glad that it was all for naught, because I did a lot of talking, and I did a lot of talking in the dark or talking by myself before people recognize who I was and what I was saying. But I appreciate you knowing and being there all this time supporting me. I really appreciate that. But let's get to the breaking news right here.
Investigating and charging these organizations. And if anyone does not believe that members of these groups are organized, sophisticated, and extremely violent, let me tell you about the plot in this case. The four defendants are Audrey Carroll, 30 years old. The pictures, I think we have them somewhere. We'll put them up here. Audrey Carroll, 30 years old. Zachary Aaron Page, 32. Dante Gaffield, 24. And Tina Lay, 41. Each from the Los Angeles area. Each is charged with conspiracy and possession of an unregistered destructive device in violation of Title 26, United States Code Section 5861D. We intend to file additional charges in the coming weeks as we finish reviewing the evidence. The defendants are all radical anti-government members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, which according to their own social media is an anti-capitalist, anti-government movement that calls for their associates to rise up and fight back against capitalism. One of the leaders of the organization, defendant Audrey Carroll, helped organize an even more radical faction of the group called the Order of the Black Lotus. Each of the defendants charged today was also a member of the Order of the Black Lotus. Carroll described this group to her co-conspirators as everything radical. As detailed in the federal complaint, which we will now make public, in November 2025, defendant Carroll created a detailed bombing plot to use explosive devices to attack 5 or more locations across Southern California on this upcoming New Year's Eve. Carroll and her co-defendant, Zachary Page, led the effort to obtain and build the bombs and to recruit others to join in their plot.
Again, there are a lot of people that are very hostile right now. They are envisioning, destroying, and stopping Trump from doing what he's doing. They want to be a big distraction to turn the efforts of Trump upside down and place it on terrorism. I'm so happy that they were able to figure this out. Of course, we know that New Year's is typically a big holiday, and people go out for New Year's Eve and they go in mass. Groups of people are hanging out in crowds with a lot of, what do you call it? not firecrackers and all that type of explosive noise that you hear, camouflaging gun shootings and other things that they may try to do. It's very imperative that we take heed and be very vigilant and careful for this upcoming new year, because people are really getting desperate out here. We do know that the TPS is ending for a lot of people. We do know that there are a lot of people that are in dire straits and not knowing what to do coming up from month to month. And I believe there'll be more dangers out there with people lashing out and acting out and plotting and doing the most. And this is just one of those things in which he's talking about a plot to have bombs for the New Year's Eve. Check this out in LA.
Carol's bomb plot was explicit. It included a step-by-step instructions to build IEDs or improvised explosive devices, and listed multiple targets across Orange County and Los Angeles. Carol also made clear her desires. She said, quote, "What we are doing will be considered a terrorist act." Carol and Page also discussed plans for follow-up attacks after their bombings, which included plans to target ICE agents and vehicles with pipe bombs. Carol stated that those plans would, quote, "take some of them out and scare the rest." Throughout early December, the co-conspirators discussed their plans during an in-person meeting in Los Angeles and through an encrypted messaging application. As part of the plan, the four defendants plan to build test bombs in the Mojave Desert. You're going to hear more details about the bombs they intended to build and how the operation went down in the desert here shortly from the FBI assistant director in charge. In preparation for the plan, the co-conspirators purchased multiple pieces of bomb-making materials and discussed their travel plans to the desert. Last Friday, December 12th, the defendants took a significant step to carry out their plans. They traveled to the remote campsite, which you're going to see some video of, in the desert, and they began unloading their bomb-making materials to assemble and test the bombs. They had everything they needed to make an operational bomb at that location, and they were subsequently arrested by the FBI before they could build a functional explosive device.
Don't stay too late.
I'll try.
Friday night, closing the books. Just a few.
Shortly after the defendants were taken into custody, the FBI executed multiple search warrants, including at the defendants' Southern California residence and other locations throughout the country. I'll highlight some of the items found during those searches over the weekend. For example, in Carol's residence, law enforcement found multiple posters and materials associated with Turtle Island Liberation Front, including posters stating, quote, "Death to America, long live Turtle Island and Palestine," and quote, "Death to ICE, Turtle Island Liberation Front." In Page's residence,
Again, people want to get here in their mind to the big stage of the world and make statements and act out and protest, and also mass destruction and unalivings of Americans. This is what they're on. So it is very important that we know who is here and why they're here. They are a lot of people that don't need to be here because they don't mean nothing good about us, at all. In fact, they just mentioned on this article that the FBI takes another person into custody in Louisiana with ties to the terror group, mentioning by the guy that just spoke on the video behind this throfted bombing plot. It says this fifth person has been arrested in connection behind the plot. The FBI Los Angeles office confirmed Monday that 4 people were arrested in California and the 5th person in New Iberia, Louisiana, who were part of the same extremist group. 4 were arrested in California for a bombing plot for New Year's Eve, y'all. New Year's Eve, the most important time of the year almost. The 5th person arrested in New Iberia was not part of the California bombings plan. However, the FBI said he was a considerable threat and part of the terror organization. The plot behind the planned bombings in California was eerily similar to the plan of Samsud Din Jabbar, 42, who placed bombs in coolers around the French Quarter and then drove a truck through a crowded Bourbon Street when those bombs did not detonate. According to the FBI, the extremist group is called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. The 4 suspects' plan included placing backpacks with pipe bombs at businesses across California. The individuals were arrested Friday, December 12th. According to FBI, their plan was to bomb 4 different U.S. companies across Southern California. According to the FBI, the group is believed to be behind multiple organized terror attack plots across the United States. The group is alleged to have been plotting to set off a series of bombings at multiple targets in California beginning on New Year's Eve and planning to target immigration and customs enforcement agents and vehicles, Attorney General Pam Bondi said on social media. Evidence photos included in the court document shows a desert campsite with what investigators said were bomb-making materials thrown across plastic folding tables. All 4 suspects were believed to be part of the Order of the Black Lotus within the TILF. The group is described as everything radical, according to the FBI. Wow. The FBI was able to intervene in the plot by following social media posts. The 4 suspects in connection with the planned bombings in California met in the desert to test the bombs. They were taken into custody and searched warrants led the FBI to a 5th person being arrested in New Iberia. They each faced charges including conspiracy and possession of a destructive device, court documents show. WDSU reached out to the FBI New Orleans office for more information on the person taken into custody. The FBI referred WDSU to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District. The WDSU reached out and is awaiting more information. This comes just ahead of the 1-year anniversary of the Bourbon Street terror attack that killed 14 people and injured 57 others. WDSU has reached out to the city of New Orleans and the New Orleans Police Department regarding any changes expected to the safety plan for New Year's Eve. So that just lets you know that there are really busy people that's trying to do everything that they can think on to really get things totally chaotic and unsafe and get us all in a state of fear. And I think that's the go-to, because if we're all like out of sorts and we're all fearful, we'll probably lose our mind and lose our way somehow. But let's get back to the video and let him finish a little bit more, and then I'll see what you guys have to say in the chat room. If you have not yet, please hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate that.
Law enforcement found a copy of the detailed bomb attack plan. This case is another reminder about the dangers that radicalized Antifa-like groups pose to public safety and the rule of law. Through the tireless work of our prosecutors in my office and our law enforcement partners, which you will hear from today, we disrupted this terror plot before buildings were demolished or innocent people were killed. But this is not the end of our work. My office is committed to extinguishing the far-left terror threats that we face, and will continue to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The 4 defendants arrested will make their initial appearance this afternoon at the federal court in downtown Los Angeles. They are each considered innocent until proven guilty. I will now turn it over to the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI LA office, Akil Davis. Good morning.
Again, my name is Akil Davis. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles Division. As we're all aware, we've had a busy weekend in this country and abroad with bad news incidents one after another. Today, we are announcing a major victory in our collective effort to protect the American people. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force intercepted a scheme by members of a violent extremist group we believe determined to detonate explosives at multiple businesses on New Year's Eve. Last Friday, the FBI arrested 4 of those subjects near 29 Palms in San Bernardino County while they planned and rehearsed their attack. The 4 subjects are members of a radical faction of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF, a violent, homegrown anti-government group. The subject arrested envisioned planting backpacks with improvised explosive devices to be detonated at multiple locations in Southern California, targeting U.S. companies. These bombs were to blow up at the same time on midnight this New Year's Eve. The plan stated that the IEDs would be complex pipe bombs. It included instructions on how to manufacture the bombs and contained guidance on how to avoid leaving evidence behind that could be traced back to them. Our investigation uncovered evidence in that the group would test the explosives in the desert. And we're going to show footage of that here in a second. We learned that the alleged co-conspirators had recently started acquiring precursor chemicals and other items necessary to accomplish this task. In recent days, the alleged co-conspirators discussed plans to travel to the desert on the 12th to detonate the explosives. Knowing this, the FBI's JTTF and the FBI Los Angeles field office staged multiple SWAT teams, special agent bomb technicians, our evidence response team, along with the FBI's elite hostage rescue team in the desert to disrupt this plan before any harm could occur. Because of this, we were able to disrupt their plan. All 4 group members were taken into custody without incident. The TIO.
I was wanting to see a picture or 2 of. Well, let me see if I can find that, because he is pretty much reading what I already read, and I don't want to be overly redundant because you guys will get bored and not be here. So let me see if I can fast forward it to.
Honestly, look at this.
Hold on.
This can be
a picture. And while I do that, let me read off some of you guys' comments and see what you have to say about this. Maybe they don't have pictures there, but hold on, let me see. All right. Yes. Leonard says you were completely right. I really appreciate that. Sheena says, I told you before that things you talked about 3 years ago to president talked about now, we are slowly waking up. Yes, and Llhan is going out bad. Definitely. Looking crazy as hell, talking about the 14th Amendment is for her and her people. That's crazy as hell. Sheena says, I am seeing in real time on TikTok people fighting and working for us. You mean working against us? Is that what you mean? Because I see a lot of people playing like they're working for us, playing like they give a damn suddenly, understanding what we've been saying suddenly. No, it's all for them to try to get us to put our guards down and try to come out and help them in their plight. That's what it's all about. There are a lot of fake pumping individuals, people that's lying and pretending, smiling and trying to joke around. I even seen a video of Africans suddenly being interested in eating soul food. They were running around, grabbing, hold on to chicken, fried chicken and greens, and they're acting like it's the best thing since Wonder Bread. So it's all a game. It's all propaganda. Many of these people could care less about us, but they think they need us. And they want us to be on their side to make their argument look better. And I'm just not here to be used and spat out, like I said a long time ago, like overly chewed gum and spat out. No, I will not support illegal immigration. I will not support all these people trying to take over our birthright. No, it's not meant for them. And that's where I stand. And I don't care. They can be mad all they want. They can go home. They have an option. I don't. This is home. This is home. Sheena says too close to home. Exactly. Leonard says, sounds like a frame up job, Turtle Island liberation, huh? Yeah, to use that name of all names. You know, a lot of indigenous American blacks speak about Turtle Island a lot being what it was called before, and they're trying to signal us to be involved. And the other terror group had black in it, which I thought was interesting. That's why I wanted to see a picture, because I don't think any of them were black, because they were talking about Palestine. So I believe that they're probably from the ancestry of that. That's why I hope to find a picture. And smarter than a waffle says, I don't believe anything, Pam Bondi says. I can respect what you mean by that, but for the most part, there's just too many people here that you cannot underestimate at this point, smarter than waffle. There's a lot of people that do not have good will intentions to be in America, and you cannot give the benefit of the doubts to millions of people that are here and you don't know the reasons why. So I want her to get out all the threats that's threatening America. So I'm on the side of her at this point in time. You said LOL, everything radical. Well, if you want to like kill off, you know, as many people you can take out with bombs and whatnot, what else would you call it? I don't know what else you're going to call that. But yeah, I just wanted to show that was breaking news before I went live. I didn't know I was going to talk about that. But let me see if I can find a video with this picture real quick, because I did see. Let me see if this will show.
Federal authorities say they stopped what the Justice Department called a massive and horrific terrorist plot targeting Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the DOJ and FBI disrupted coordinated bombing plans allegedly tied to a left-wing extremist group calling itself the Turtle Island Liberation Front. Officials say the group held pro-Palestinian, anti-government, anti-capitalist views and was hostile toward law enforcement, with plans to target immigration and customs enforcement agents and vehicles. 4 suspended members were arrested over the weekend.
Here are, they showed it. Oh, hold on. They did show a couple of pictures real quick, and they were either white or I'm guessing Palestinian, but again, dangerous because they don't have goodwill. What in the world is this? Lord, hold on. Oh, Lord. The heck? I'm trying to show this other video and this thing keeps playing. What did that? Okay, maybe I will be able to find a better video when they get more information about it, but I will do an update on who is who in that plot in LA. But just know that they hate America. They hate Americans. You don't make bombs loving on Americans, trying to use, you know, our holiday against us to maximize the potential of threat at a heightened level. So I'm glad that it was founded out, and I'm glad that, you know, everybody has their heads up. They should, you know, if you're going to go out, you need to be very, very careful. I'm not going out under no circumstance. I'm not going in any group hangout. I'm not looking at the fireworks. I'm not going to go out drinking. I'm staying my ass put out of the way, safe and sound. That's what I'm going to do. So moving forward, I wanted to get to Llhan, what's her name? Llhan, Omar. I keep saying, I can't never remember her name. Anyway, she made a big to-do about the 14th Amendment meant for her and her people, which is a lie. And the typical parasitic type of individual she is, being a pirate and whatnot, wanting to take over what is meant for Black Americans. And this is the attitude of all immigrants that come over here. They have what they want to take from America and make a way for themselves out of nothing that they had at home. So I want to show this video where she talked about it. Hold on. Why is my phone doing that? Hold on. All right, turn off. All right, I want you guys to see this video real quick about what she said.
Criminals in the U.S. are not going anywhere. Specifically, Somali criminals. So she is saying the criminals are not going anywhere.
Yep.
This is on the Joe Reed Show. Go ahead, Rob.
I know that those of us who are Somali in this country see ourselves as Americans. That's what our passport says. That's what our nationality is. And we know that we are protected by the 14th Amendment. We know that we're not going anywhere. And there is no way, I mean, he needs to just, I know he says he hasn't met me. Maybe he should spend 5 minutes with me, because then he would know that as Somalis, we are never intimidated, and, you know, we're never going to feel like our esteem or confidence is shaken
flag in the back.
by a bigoted fool, you know, making
a
mockery of the White House, of our nation, and of the presidency.
Llhan Omar.
She has always been anti-American sounding. She has always criticized the Constitution and everything that she can talk on. She always big up Somalia and talking about her people. I do not consider her an American. I'm sorry. Getting a passport is not making you a more American than me. You have another allegiance to Somalia, and since that is there, you cannot be a true American. You are a citizen by naturalization process, or whatever way you call it, but that is not the same as a full-grown American of the soil, of the history, and everything connected to this land, and having only allegiance to America. She cannot, you know, hijack our birthright citizen to make it hers. And that's what she's attempting to do. She's going to use that argument to try to make it more about her people than us making it about ours. And that's what I'm trying to be online to let our people know, that you need to be able to tell these people that is not your shit. That is not your birthright. That's mine. We need to have a collective ownership on the birthright citizenship, because that is going to be affecting a lot of people if they're able to keep things as is, and that's going to squeeze us out more. That's going to keep us at the bottom. That is our future being tampered with, and the hijack and the takeover of our destiny would be swapped out, if allotted, to the likes of Llhan Omar as having the right to claim the 14th Amendment. Who has more of a right to claim the 14th Amendment? The people that it was meant for back in the days where it happened? The 1800s? Or people that showed up 30 years ago? Come on. We got to be able to support ourselves. And that's my issue that I have with some of the indigenous American blacks who thinks that we supposed to look out for everybody, when it's going to turn around and bite us in the ass for having that attitude. We cannot afford to have that attitude. We have to have and claim ownership of what the birthright citizen was meant for us. So let's look at this conversation from Jesse Kelly, who is talking about the Supreme Court, which will be the biggest decision made in United States since I've been alive. And I think it's a very important topic to think on and not make it minimal, because it's not minimal. It's a very serious topic, and it's going to affect a lot of people. And you do not want yourself to be in the same mindset or thought as an immigrant, because we are not immigrants. We are Americans. We earned the right. I know a lot of people would like us to believe that we're not American. Pan-Africans been preaching this for many, many decades that we're not truly American because they want us to think about Africa, while these same people that's preaching and pushing upon us this fake Pan-African talk, the immigrants themselves are coming to America and they're trying to replace us. Now, isn't it funny that while this stuff is going on with immigration and people being told to leave and told to go back home and fix your country and whatnot, why isn't there any Pan-Africans speaking out to the immigrants to maybe go to Africa and help build up Africa? Why is not the focus turning to them to try to encourage them that there is a new civilization for them, it's a better way of life for them to go to Africa? Aren't we told these things by Umar Johnson, by all the Pan-Africans, by Dr. Eric Kana? Where are all these voices at speaking to the Africans that are here in America that are told that they got to go, or told the Haitians that they got to go, and the Jamaicans, they got to go, and everybody else? Why can't they go to Africa to build up Africa and think about Marcus Garvey and think about the Promised Land and all that? Why is it only reserved for Black Americans? Because we are the true inheritors of the birthright, and we are the true inheritors that have rights here in America made by blood, sweat, and tears. People want to discredit our ancestors so that they can take over what our ancestors built and claim it for their own ploy to take over and replace us. That's why you're not hearing Pan-Africans saying, hey, Haitians, don't worry, we've got a spot for you over here in Burkina Faso. We got a spot for you in Senegal. You guys can come together with all your money and all your tools and all the things that you've learned and help create businesses over here. Nobody said a word to them. It's very, very peculiar, but I'm going to get into, after I talk about the Supreme Court, why I think that is. I do believe that a long time ago, back in the 1700s, like when Prince Hall showed up from nowhere, I think the Barbados or even England, he came and brought that term African. In writings he talked about there was an African lodge all of a sudden that turned up. Prior to all that, we weren't called African. We were called Negroes. We were called colored. We were called mulattoes. We were called Indians. We were called other stuff, not African. And then out the blue, African showed up. And when he showed up, Prince Hall, this African lodge was around. He did Freemasonry and called it the Prince Hall Freemasonry. I do believe that people from Britain and other places were sent here with this Go Back to Africa movement. And they're still here among us telling us still about this Go Back to Africa. It's only reserved for us. It's not told to any other immigrant to go back to Africa. These people come to America from other places talking about go back to Africa to me and to us, not to themselves. And I think it's very interesting how they're trying to trick us out of our birthright. And I hope that this video will showcase the ridiculousness of that to be told to us even in 2025, going on 2026. You're still hearing people talk about Marcus Garvey as if he is a legitimate person to follow today, when nobody wants to be in Africa. No Africans especially want to be there. They want to be where I'm at. They want to go to any other country but stay in Africa. But anyways, we'll get to that in a minute. I just want you guys to keep that in mind about Prince Hall, because we're going to tackle that in just a little bit after this video, talking about the Supreme Court decision for the birthright citizenship.
Can agree with me, and he
definitely knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, but in my opinion, the birthright citizenship question is the most important decision the Supreme Court will ever make in its entire history. It is that important. People do not understand just how much the system has been abused, and I'm scared to death because I have no idea how they're going to rule. Joining me now, the great Bill Jacobson, Cornell Law University professor, and of course founder of Legal Insurrection. All right, Bill, you can agree or disagree. You can call me an idiot, but I want to know how they're going to rule. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I'd like to know that too. I think it'll be very interesting when we get the oral arguments there. But I think people in the mainstream media have not taken this case very seriously because they've been accustomed to birthright citizenship all of their natural lives. But it wasn't always that way. And so I think they're going to be very surprised that there are very serious, legitimate arguments against it. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I think you are absolutely right. This will be an earthquake changing the nation if they strike down the common concept of birthright citizenship. Really, in many ways, larger than the abortion decision. It may not receive the violent reaction that the abortion decision received, but it is essentially building the wall, but not restricted to the southern border. It will cut off the anchor baby problem. It will cut off the birthright citizenship tourism problem. It will really change the nation, the way the nation looks at who is an American citizen. No more will your mere presence here illegally or temporarily be enough to become a citizen. And that changes the whole equation on immigration and migration and all of the problems that we have. In many ways, it will be more effective than passing a more stringent immigration law because it removes the incentive. If you come here illegally or temporarily, there is no citizenship at the end of the rainbow. And that's just going to be enormous.
And I think that should be what it is. I mean, I remember Llhan bragging on one of his interviews about his dad and mom, jumping on an airplane real quick so that he could be born on the soil to get that stamp of citizenship. Then he took him back to Senegal to stay for 7 years, I believe, if I remember right. And then he came back 7 years and moved over here among us, gained off of our culture, becoming an artist, and then turned around ridiculing us and telling us to go back to Africa and to build up Africa. Remember? At the same time, Llhan does not ever want to set foot on Senegal for good when he's telling us we would do so much better over there, but he ain't there. And this is the same man that tried to scam us out of an Akon city, try to get us to buy his coins and whatnot, his cryptocurrency bullshit scam. Again, they see us as a lick. They don't mean what they say, but they think that they can tell us anything and we're supposed to just follow them. And I believe that that's a big issue right there. A lot of Africans, unfortunately, really think that they should have authority over us. That's what I believe that they're on. They want to be able to say, you do this, you put your money here, you give me this, you give me that, you take instructions and do this and do that. They want to take the leadership and they want to be able to try to have authority over us. And they can't do that here while we're here in America. But if we were to go to Africa and relinquish our birthright, if we would renounce our birthright citizenship and try to get other citizenships like they've been trying to instruct us to go do, try to get us to go spend money buying land and building houses over there, it would weaken our position over here in America. And that's what I think they're all on one accord about us doing. That's why it's so fascinating to me how Africans don't talk among themselves about what they can do for Africa, but they're steadily on platforms talking about us, talking about how we can fix our shit over here, because they're so gun-ho with this obsession to believe that they have the right to tell us something, to believe that they have the right to try to dictate something. And the problem is, we're in America, under the jurisdiction of America, with a primarily white government. Of course, we have black people intermingled in the government, but I'm saying the bigger power would be more or less white folks. And they don't have the jurisdiction because we have citizenship, because we have a birthright and we're Americans. And that is where their problem lies. They want us to be in their jurisdiction. They want us to be under their thumb. They want us to have to be under their rulership. And that's why Akon was talking that bullshit. But if you ask him, should he keep on to his citizenship of America because he deliberately came over here and become an anchor baby? And what allegiance would he choose? Would he choose Senegal or would he choose America? I bet you he chooses America while talking this bullshit, go back to Africa to us. I want y'all to understand that, but that's what Akon has said. Let me see what you guys are saying. Let me see. All right, let me see. I'll just say it plain. Deport all tethers. I wouldn't miss anything about it. You know what I'm saying? They have really made a big issue with us online. They have disrespected us beyond accepting an apology. It is what it is. I'm on the side of my side. I'm on the side of my people. I'm on the side of Indigenous American Blacks. That's all I care about. That's what I'm rocking for. That's who I advocate for. I'm not advocating for any immigrant to have the same access to my birthright. No, I will not. Whatever happens with that Supreme Court, I hope it will preserve what it was meant to preserve, which is our birthright. That's all I care about. Outside of that, how they word it or how they cut it off or how they finesse or make it manageable to not cut off like millions of people, I guess they have to figure that out. But that's not going to be for me to worry on. That's not going to be my plight to care about. It's not going to be. You said Elaho scammer. Exactly. You never lied. They pulled her son over yesterday just to show her it's real. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Let me play that little clip of her. There is an interview that she did briefly, and she did mention about the son, and that is kind of ironic, but they're letting her know how close they are to getting to her is more closer than what she realizes. But yeah, she's playing this real peep game of how she's talking. Any other time you be seeing her talking reckless, talking out the side of her ass, and she's trying to look as humble as possible. She's trying to look and put on the cap of an American. She does not respect America, though. She thinks that her shit don't stink, and she thinks that she is supposed to be superior over here somehow.
Omar is calling for clarity about the immigration crackdown in the Twin Cities. In a letter to DHS on Friday, Omar says witnesses have documented blatant racial profiling and an egregious level of unnecessary force by ICE agents during Operation Metro Surge. President Donald Trump continues to target Omar, calling her and other Somalis, quote, garbage, and accusing her of attaining U.S. citizenship illegally. Congresswoman Llhan Omar represents 700,000 Minnesotans in Minneapolis and the West Metro suburbs. She won her last election a year ago by 50 percentage points, and the Congresswoman joins us right now. Thank you very much for coming in.
Good to be with you, Esme.
Right. I do want to ask, first of all, how are you, and what is it like being the focus of a president's ire repeatedly over and over again?
I am doing all right. And It is really disturbing and creepy to have the President of the United States be obsessed with you and those who share your ethnicity. I know that he is deflecting from the failures of his presidency. He rather scapegoat us than answer for why people can't afford their lives, why he has not fulfilled his promise of creating a more fair, affordable America. He doesn't want to answer for the possible war crimes of shooting down those boats in the Caribbean. He does not want any conversations about releasing the Epstein files. He wants to continue to protect pedophiles. And he certainly doesn't want to answer for why soybean farmers are struggling here under the weight of not just tariffs, but the fact that he bailed out Argentina to the tune of $40 billion. And so what does he do when he doesn't want to really answer the questions about the failures of his administration? He cues the bigotry. And we know this playbook.
Well, this has been going on. Well, there's a history there that goes back to the first term, but this latest incident or series of incidents has been about 2 weeks. And Jean, your staffer, was telling me in the past 2 weeks, there has been a flood of phone calls into your office. And I want you to tell me about the majority of those calls.
Yeah, the majority of those calls are of people who are lending their support, telling us that they disagree and mortified about what the president has had to say, not just about me, but about Somalis here in Minnesota and in this country, who are their neighbors and fellow classmates and fellow co-workers. But they also tell us to continue fighting because it does set an example when you stand up to bullies. And there's so many young people who are watching us who want that representation that says you're not going to bully us from doing the work that we're supposed to do.
Well, the president does have the proverbial bully pulpit, being the president, and he has continued to say and accuse you of attaining U.S. citizenship illegally. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows I came to the United States at the age of 12, gained my citizenship at the age of 17, and I am an elected representative
But she managed to skip over the accusations of her marrying her brother to bring her brother over here. She doesn't want to address that part of it. She wants to skip over that and act like that's nonsense, but that is a legitimate argument. I believe Megan Kelly brought it up. Hold on, there's a video that I want to show about that because they're saying that the statute of limitations about her marrying her brother might not be something that they can go after, but they did something else, or her father might not be over here, or her father when he came might not came over here legally. So that's another route to talk about why or if she is a true citizen of America. Let me find that part. Is this it? Hold on.
Just shocking.
Oh, that's not it. That's not it. Where'd it go? She got a lot of the same clips of her face, but I have a direct one. Hold on, let me find it. Can't be too far off. Please hit the like button if you guys could, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. We're having real conversation about this birthright citizenship. Who has ownership over the birthright citizenship? It is us, Black Americans, that nobody wants to talk about. And I will show you what I mean by that. But let me find Megan Kelly. Where did that go? Unless it's over here. Come on. Oh man, I must have it on my other phone. Oh, come on. Anyways, for some odd reason, I cannot find that video. But let's get back to her interview real quick. Again, her lies, and she's gonna try to get all, oh, my son, my son.
The House of Congress, and so the House of Representatives in Congress. And so for me, I look at it as a display of his ignorance. And I see it as a national embarrassment that he continues to say those kind of things, even though he does know what the truth is.
One of the things that the president keeps talking about, and others have talked about it here, is the degree of fraud in some Medicaid programs here in Minnesota, which obviously is taking away from people who really need the money. A disproportionate amount of the people who have been convicted so far are Somali. What do you say to that, and the fact that the entire community is getting blamed for this?
Yeah, I mean, here in the United States, we don't blame the crimes of an individual on a whole community. We are, as Minnesotans, also outraged the fact that our tax dollars were defrauded. And as somebody who deeply cares about these sort of social safety net programs, I'm deeply hurt that we had fellow Minnesotans who thought it was okay not only to take that money away from vulnerable people that needed it, but also jeopardize the future of these programs.
Right. One of the things the president is also targeting is that they want to do several investigations to see whether any of the money that Somalians send home, which they have for years, via money transfer businesses, if any of that has gone to a terror group called Al-Shabaab that has murdered many, many Somali citizens. The suggestion the president seems to make is that Somalis are hand in hand with Al-Shabaab. Do you want to clear that up? And what do you think about looking to see if anything is getting to Al-Shabaab?
I mean, Somalis here in Minnesota have been in the forefront of fighting against the terror that is Al-Shabaab and the destruction that it has caused in Somalia. Many of us have family members that still live in Somalia. Many of us have friends and people that we grew up with. We are deeply worried every single time that there is a terrorist attack that somebody we know might have gotten hurt. And so if there...
She is trying to make the separation that those people are not her people all the time because she's American too. They're Minnesotans. No, they're Somalians, like you are a Somalian. And you are not a true American. You are a citizen under, the ability to scam. Let's see. I did find the video now on what Megyn Kelly was talking on. Let's look at this real quick.
For all of us, which is about Llhan Omar. It starts bad, but then it gets good. She married her brother, allegedly, so that he could get into the country and be here, like an immigration matter. Trump keeps saying that she married her brother so she can get in. That's not it. She was already in. She was brought in by her dad when she was young, under 18. But she did reportedly, allegedly, marry her own brother so that he could come into the country, and then divorced him and got remarried to her own ex-husband, I think is how it went, because this is all a fraud to get her brother here. Legal Insurrection, which is a great website, tells me the statute of limitations has run on that claim, that immigration fraud claim with the brother, if indeed it happened. However, because Tom Homan was on Fox saying that they're looking into this brother thing with Llhan Omar. That's the best news we've heard. I'm thrilled that DHS is actually looking into it. So if the statute of limitations has run on the brother situation, still it should be exposed and documented. There is the possibility that she's still in trouble because now they think, okay, let me just read the following. And they're citing this Matt Tardio on X. Llhan Omar claims that she obtained her citizenship when her father was naturalized in 2000, just months before her 18th birthday. But there's a problem. No record has been found of his naturalization paperwork. In response to a FOIA request for her father's N-400 paperwork filed by A.J. Kern in June of 2023, the National Records Center was unable to locate any filings under his name. Question: can she be denaturalized and deported if this is substantiated? Answer: yes. If fraud was involved in her father's alleged naturalization, then her citizenship could be on the chopping block, because that would be immigration fraud by the dad that would affect her, and that would be a political earthquake, Dave Smith. That if she's not a U.S. citizen, she can't be a U.S. House member, and she could be deported. I mean, like, I just want to give you that little nugget going off.
And I hope to goodness that she does get deported. I don't give a damn about that woman. I don't like
U.S. House member,
her. I don't like what she represents. I don't like the fact that she's trying to hijack our birthright citizenship and try to make it seem like it's theirs. No, we ain't doing that. They need to make an example out of that woman. Hold on for a minute. Let me turn this down. But yeah, marrying her brother. And they said the limitation statute may be up on that. I don't understand how that could be if it's a known scam. I mean, why would you have a limit on that? I don't get that part. But they're saying that the father might never had been legalized as a citizen, and so there we have her not really legitimately here, according to what you need to be on, as far as her parent being legal too. If he didn't go through the process like he should have, he thought he could skate by, like they tend to think that they can be able to get away with doing because they've been doing it for so long, and they all get caught up with the same scam. I think they all should be taken from having that citizenship claim. That's just me. Because we have too many ungrateful, entitled immigrants here that don't mean nothing good for Americans, but scamming the system. And you hear her talking very light about the scamming there in Minnesota. She's making it seem like she's detached from that, but she's knowing these people. She's affiliated with these people. They are her people. And I think if they dig really, really deep, they're going to find more information on her being involved somehow. I would not be surprised, allegedly, if she is involved somehow, and they just have to dig a little bit more and figure that part out. I would not be surprised. But what do you guys think about her claiming the birthright citizenship? Do you think that we should let that slide? Black Americans, do you think that we should let her believe that that's her duty to do? No, I don't believe so. I think that she needs to keep her hands off of our birthright. And I'm glad that Trump is going to fight for us being recognized, and it's going to help with our delineation, which we're trying to do so that we are recognized here on this soil as us being Americans. Because for the longest time, we have been terrorized by other Pan-Africans and other immigrants to tell us to our face that we're not really American because we're not white. And these same people coming up over here trying to become America, telling us we ain't the Americans. We're not letting that go. We are not letting that go. So I'm putting you, Llhan, Omar, on notice, and other immigrants that want to claim the 14th Amendment as being here. Were you here during the time of the Civil War? Were you here during the time when the decision was made for the birthright citizenship to be here? No, you were not. So that is not yours to claim. Go pick up another type of excuse or argument, but do not make that claim based off of a lie. Don't make that claim based off of so-called blackness and all that retarded shit that you guys are trying to pull to scam us. You're not American. You don't have the lineage here to support you claiming the birthright citizenship. So let's get back to this at hand.
The rainbow. And that's just going to be enormous.
Bill, I hate to ask a question like this because it's going to be open-ended. Just going to have to hand you the floor, but I can't wrap my mind around it, and I want you to explain it to me. Everyone knows what the 14th Amendment was about. Everybody knows that, unless you're a complete moron. Everyone knows this was about slaves who had every right to obviously become full citizens, and it's all documented. It's not, I can read it, and it's documented. That's what the 14th Amendment was about. How, in the name of God, did we get to the place where it meant you can jump across the border from Mexico and have a kid in an emergency room and he's an American citizen, and that this is even up for debate in the courts? How did we even get here?
Well, I think it's like a lot of things. It's a narrative gets set. A narrative gets set in the media. A narrative gets set politically. It obviously has been in the great interest of the Democrat Party to have this current arrangement. So it's, like the boiling frog. It happens slowly, and then you wake up and you realize we have people running across the border. We have people coming into California from Asia on express.
You catch what he said? The Democrats. It was the Democrats. They are the facilitator of the hijack and the destiny swap from us to illegals and immigrants. They have been working very, very hard to replace us. Joe Biden did a real bad number with that border. And to think about how hateful that could be of him to hate America like that, by allowing anybody from anywhere unvetted over here. And now we have all these terroristic potential threats and dangers off of his stupidity. Now, let's take a listen to this video real quick, and I'll go back to that Supreme Court. This is Fox talking about Biden purposely ignoring the open border, causing all this chaos, orchestrating all this mayhem that we're seeing and witnessing now.
Joining us now from Senate Homeland Security, Senator Ashley Moody. Senator, it's great to see you. What do you make of this? Critics are saying the laws did not change. Democrats just decided they would ignore the laws.
Yeah, and you had a president in office that first and foremost just lied in that statement. One of the first things he did was stop deporting people convicted of serious felony offenders, including those in federal prisons that had been convicted of crimes. And rather than deporting them back to their home country, they decided they would just push them into the interior of the United States. So look, this was a full-scale attack on the immigration system by the Biden administration.
And the American people.
And the American people. There are really three ways to have an effect on the numbers here. And they attacked it on all fronts. People that you encounter or apprehend at the border, whether you're going to release them or push them into the interior, and then how many you're deporting back to their home countries under the laws of the people that we enact here in Congress. And Biden, not only did he have record high, really overwhelming numbers being allowed in at the border, they were basically saying, come one, come all, it's a free day. In fact, while they were saying the border was secure, they were opening it wide up. We had to sue on that. And a federal judge said, yeah, they turned it nothing more than a speed bump. They also had mass release quotas into the interior. So those that were coming in, they were like, you have to release more into the interior. And look at the difference between that and what President Trump is doing. They just released the numbers of those that they've released over the last 7 months. How many have they pushed into the interior? 0. Compare that with Biden, who had release quotas. And then look at the deportations that Trump is trying to get out of the country, those that were pushed in, many with long criminal records, danger to our communities. And look at what's happening now. You got Democratic leaders and Democratic politicians in other states that are using taxpayer money to harass, intimidate, threaten ICE agents that are trying to do their jobs in accordance with the people's law. It really is a breakdown in civil society and how our country is meant to operate. And hey, don't take my word for it. Take President Obama's word for it.
Yeah, there's no other country in the world that does this. Every other country we looked at has respect and tightens their borders and has border security. What do you make of the New York Times reporting finally that Joe Biden's advisors warned him open borders would lead to chaos and a border crisis, but he did it anyway? after top aides warned this would alienate their base of far-left progressive voters if they did not open the borders. They were basically appeasing their far left. They rationalized it that immigration was not a major concern for Americans living in non-border states. The Times, you should know, they made a sweeping generalization claiming Americans lost faith in immigration. That's flat out wrong. They did not. Multiple polls show Americans and minority communities want legal immigration. So what do you make of the Times report here that Biden was told but ignored it?
Yeah, we uncovered this in litigation. As you know, as Attorney General in Florida, we did everything we could to safeguard our state. I sued the Biden administration and won multiple times, and we uncovered the smoking gun from right in the first few days of the administration. His advisor said, if you do this, if you issue these executive orders, the border will be overrun. You will not be able to maintain control of the border, and it will create chaos in the states. And it did.
We should point out more than 62,400 missing children were found. The Trump administration rescued more than 62,400 children who could have been sex trafficked or labor trafficked. Thank you so much, Senator.
They were trafficked.
Yeah, Senator
Absolutely.
Moody, thank you so much.
So it's undeniable that Joe Biden had a lot to do with allowing the border to be wide open for 4 long years. Upwards to 12 to 20 million were allowed to come into America. And immigrants are acting surprised that Trump is acting and reacting the way that he is to try to get control and management of what has transpired. And this is why he went to deal with the birthright citizenship, because it was an incentive to motivate immigrants to scam America, as they've been getting away with doing for decades behind the likes of Joe Biden. So this is why it has become a very critical conversation and topic, the birthright citizenship. And who it's meant for, it's most important for the people that it was meant for to stand up and not be shy or a coward in representing who it was meant for with pride. It was meant for us. We are the babies and the descendants of the slaves of America. We are the ones that were always scapegoated. And now that we are not the target and the scapegoat, people are running for cover for our birthright. People are trying to claim to have access to what our ancestors bled and died for. And I don't believe that you guys should be able to do what you're doing. Let me get to the most important person. I believe that anyone that is a Black American, if you really want to follow the right type of leader, it should be someone similar to Frederick Douglass. Definitely, he should be the one that should be followed. He was definitely instrumental. He was an American social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, statesman. He was the most important leader of the movement for, they put in African American, of course, I don't like that, Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, civil rights in the 19th century. He was very, very instrumental. He, let me see, he fought for us to stay in America when the movement of going back to Africa because of the colonization society tried to get freed Black slaves to go to Liberia and Sierra Leone. He was stomping down and saying, no, we are mixed race people at this point. We don't know nothing about Africa. Our home is America. And he stomped down and spread, civil rights for us to be able to have what we got. And he made sure that we put blood, sweat, and tears into the plight and fight. Let me see if I can find something else to read about him real quick. All right, let me go down. After he escaped from slavery in Maryland in 1838, Douglas became a national leader of the abolitionist movement in Massachusetts and New York, and gained fame for his oratory and incisive anti-slavery writings. Accordingly, he was described by abolitionists in his time as living counterexample to claims by supporters of slavery that enslaved people lacked the intellectual capacity to function as independent American citizens. Northerners at the time found it hard to believe that such a great orator had once been enslaved. It was in response to his disbelief that Douglas wrote his first autobiography. Douglas wrote 3 autobiographies describing his experiences as an enslaved person in his narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave in 1845, which became a bestseller and was influential in promoting the cause of abolitionists, as was his second book, My Bondage and My Freedom, in 1855. Following the Civil War, Douglass was an active campaigner for the rights of freed slaves and wrote his last autobiography, Life and Times of Frederick Douglass, first published in 1881 and revised in 1892. 3 years before his death, the book covers his life up to those dates. Douglass also actively supported women's suffrage, and he held several public offices without his knowledge or consent. Douglass became the first Black American, I will say, instead of African American, nominated for Vice President of the United States as the running mate of Victoria Wood Hull on the Equal Rights Party ticket. Douglass believed in making alliances across racial and ideological divides, as well as in the anti-slavery interpretation of the U.S. Constitution after he had broken with William Lloyd Garrison with radical abolitionists under the motto, "No Union with Slaveholders," criticized Douglass's willingness to engage in dialogue with slave owners. He replied, "I would unite with anybody to do right and with nobody to do wrong." The point of me bringing him up is because this notion that Black Americans are not really Americans has been cemented in the minds of Pan-Africans with the likes of the Marcus Garveys and the likes of Prince Hall. They all came from somewhere else, talking this rhetoric of the movement of go back to Africa, which, by the way, Frederick Douglass was against. And when I look up the Go Back to Africa movement, which I'm about to do right now, to read a little bit of that, to show you the hypocrisy of this movement, and they still want us, the Democrats, to believe in this movement today. They are the ones that push the Ghana, the year of return. They're the ones that personally went to Ghana. What's her name? Nancy Pelosi. And she was in Ghana promoting this because this is what they're all on. They want us to go to Africa while the immigrants are here to replace us. They want us to swap our destinies with immigrants. It's always been their goal. And we are saying today in our delineation of that nonsense that we're not going anywhere. Our birthright that people are trying to vie for right now was meant for us. We're not giving up anything that was given to us by our ancestors for other people to enjoy the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestor. We're going to enjoy the blood, sweat, and tears of our own ancestors, and y'all need to find your own ancestors to get their own sacrifice and go off of that history for your own plight and your own narrative and history. Stop using ours for your benefit. We're not here to be used for you. Now, this Back to Africa movement was a political movement in the 19th and 20th centuries, advocating for the return of the descendants of so-called African American slaves to the regions of the African continent below the Sahara. That's what they were on. And it's very surprising, as usual, that the Pan-Africans ain't saying nothing about all the things that's going on right now with immigrants being told that they have so much limited time here in America not to tell the melanated immigrants to go to Africa. Since it's so good for us, why isn't it not so good for them? Why is it only reserved for us? Just think about that mind fuck and the hypocrisy of the Pan-African to tell us to go move to Africa, the continent below the Sahara. The small number of freed slaves who settled in the sub-Saharan Africa, some under duress, initially faced brutal conditions due to diseases to which they no longer had biological resistance. As the failure became known in the United States in the 1820s, it spawned and energized the radical abolitionist movement. In the 20th century, the Jamaican political activists and Black nationalists, Marcus Garvey, members of the Rastafarian movement, and other so-called African Americans supported the concept, but few actually left the United States. Very few, because we weren't on what Marcus Garvey was preaching and teaching back in the 1920s. And now we're here in 2025. And I'm here to tell those that are confused we're not interested in going back to Africa, especially now. Especially now. If you can't convince the Africans that are fighting to stay in America, the Haitians fighting to stay in America, and all the other melanated people that don't have our birthright and don't have our history here on this soil, you can't convince them to go. You damn sure are not going to convince us to want to go. Continuing on to read, in the late 18th century, thousands of Black loyalists joined the British military forces during the American Revolutionary War. Keep that in mind. There are Black loyalists that joined the British military forces during the American Revolutionary War. In 1787, the British Crown founded a settlement in Sierra Leone in what was called the Province of Freedom. So the British Crown founded a settlement in Sierra Leone called the Province of Freedom, beginning a long process of settlement of formerly enslaved so-called African Americans, because we know we went through all other names prior to that term being attached to us against our will. And they were brought to the Sierra Leone based off of the British Crown founding it. Keep that in mind. During these same years, some so-called African Americans launched their own initiatives to return to Africa. And by 1811, Paul Coffey, a wealthy New England African so-called American, Native American / shipper also, keep that in mind, had transported some members of the group known as the Free African Society to Liberia. And the reason why I wanted to read that is because it's very interesting to me how the term of African somehow just showed up in our narrations in the 1700s somehow. And this so-called notion of Free African Society brought forth was out the blue. We weren't called African when slavery was instituted in America. We were called Negroes because many of us are from this soil. Many of us are the American Negroes or the Black Indians that people saw when Columbus came. We were reclassified into categories, calling us Negro, colored, freedmen, Black, now African American. And like I said, somehow Africans showed up. Somehow. Again, let me go back and read a little bit more. Paul Coffey, a wealthy New England so-called African American Native American shipper, had transported some members of the group known as the Free African Society to Liberia. During these years, some free African Americans also relocated to Haiti, where a slave revolution had effected a free Black state by 1800. On November 18th, 1803, Haiti became the first nation ever to successfully gain independence through a slave revolt. In the following years, Liberia was founded by free Africans from the United States. The immigration of African American, both free and recently emancipated, was funded and organized by the American Colonization Society, which hoped that slavery could be ended as an institution without releasing millions of former slaves into American society. The mortality rate of these settlers were high. Of the 4,571 immigrants who arrived in Liberia between 1820 and 1843, only 1,819 survived. So potentially it was a death trap for those who went to go to Liberia off of the American Colonization Society with this notion of the Go Back to Africa theme that was supported by the British Crown and was settled in Sierra Leone as well by the British Crown. And lo and behold, we have these unusual people that popped up and started talking about Africa and Africans. I don't believe in the 1600s Africa was even called Africa then. I believe it was changed over to be called that sometime in the 1700s, thus the term African, and somehow someone came from either England or some place that was colonized by the British Crown, to bring that topic to light in the Americas. And that's why we're hearing today this notion of go back to Africa, even after all this time. But we see the Africans and the immigrants that from other nations don't look at Africa as being the promised land. They don't look at Africa as being their home country. They want to not deal with Africa, but yet these same people desire for Indigenous American Blacks such as myself to look upon Africa as heaven on earth. Isn't that ironic? Oh, it's crazy. Now let me talk about Prince Hall. This is why I came to this conclusion. Prince Hall. Prince Hall was a very unusual person. He kind of popped out from nowhere in history. He wanted to be a part of the Freemasonry that was ran and owned by white folks. And he was declined from joining because he was not, I don't believe, full-fledged Black. I think he was probably mixed, because why would he think at that time to be asking white folks to join in solidarity of a club or a lodge or whatever you call it? Let me read this. Prince Hall, 1735, between that and 38, it doesn't know the exact date that he was born, what year, anywhere for 1735 and 38 through December 7, 1807, was an American abolitionist and leader in the free black community in Boston. He founded Prince Hall Freemasonry and lobbied for education rights for so-called African American children. He was also active in the Back to Africa movement. That's the part I wanted y'all to hear. Hall tried to gain a place for New York's enslaved and free blacks in Freemasonry, education in the military, some of the most crucial spheres of society in his time. Hall is considered the founder of Black Freemasonry in the United States, known today as Prince Hall Freemasonry. He formed the African Grand Lodge of North America, somehow African Grand Lodge of North America, and was unanimously elected its Grand Master and served until he died in 1807. Steve Gladstone, author of Freedom Trail Boston, states that Hall was one of the most influential free black leaders in the late 1700s. I believe he was brought forth. It reads that there is confusion about his birth year, place of birth, parents, marriages, partly because there were numerous Prince Halls during the period. My point is, I believe he was sent from somewhere outside of being in America, and he brought forth this Go Back to Africa movement. And I believe to this day, there are a lot of people that are part of this Freemasonry, a Prince Hall and other Boule classes that still are under that premise of thought, trying to influence the likes of me and my folks to go leave America, again, with the emphasis of taking away our destiny and swapping our life with immigrants. And that still is going on today. Anyone that's talking about go back to Africa, in my opinion, you're my enemy. Because most of y'all that are speaking that way ain't there. And you ain't wanting to go. Yet you keep preaching and teaching this bullshit to me and mine that we need to go, or we hate ourselves, we hate Africans, and all this other baloney stuff that you guys are constantly crying and whining about. And now we have this issue with immigrants being told to leave, and they're running out of time, and the resetting of the civil right or the birthright citizenship is up for grabs in the next 6 months. But there's no talking about going back to Africa. None of y'all talk to them about going back to Africa. How, Sway? What's wrong with y'all? I'll tell you what's wrong with y'all. Y'all are hypocrites. You're liars, connivers. You guys have always been in our ear to try to displace us from our home. And now we know what's going on. Let me see what else you guys have to say in the chat room before I continue. Please hit the like button. Please share, subscribe. This is about telling the truth and shaming the devil. We have too many people that is in our ears specifically to try to get us to go, and they don't want to go themselves. But everybody got answers for us about what we ought to do, but you don't have no answers for the immigrants. Make that make sense, y'all. Make it make sense. The birthright citizenship is ours. It's meant for us. It's not meant for immigrants. Why aren't y'all talking about that? No, y'all don't want to talk about that because you want us to believe that y'all should share in the same rights as us, and you should not. That is the point. You should not. And I hope and pray that what Trump's doing will suffice and work, because what the scamming's been about has been detrimental to us as Americans, all of us as Americans. We've been squeezed out of our own positions. We have been fighting for our own survival in America, where we're from, while immigrants have been invited and they have been replacing us for a very long time. And now the jig is up. The jig is up. It's over. Yes, they are trying to destiny swap like we talked about yesterday. Yes, they are, Sheena, definitely. Yes, Scam Con City. And his ass is nowhere near that city, nor Senegal or Africa, talking that bullshit to us about going back to Africa. I'm like, get the fuck out of our face. Yes, they're definitely obsessed with us because they want to have what we have. They want to replace us and become the new black face of America and have us over there struggling and starving and just making our way out of nothing that you could make your way out of. Leonard says, I'm thoroughly convinced tethers don't know how dangerous pink folks are. I think they're finally getting a little glimmer of understanding, but they don't want to face what their real reality is back home, though, Leonard. They figured if they just play their cards right here, that they can land in a better situation than what they could ever land in their own home country, because they don't know how to sacrifice for their own mobility. They only want to use others to make movements forward. They want others to become their slaves. They envision us to become their slaves. That's why they're mad. They're like, y'all ancestors built up America. Why can't y'all come over here and do the same thing over here? Because what they did to us was by force. We didn't want to do it. We were forced to do it under duress. So if y'all have the mindset of us building, then y'all pretty much wish that we would have been your slave to build up Africa instead of building up America. But the problem is we're no longer slaves, and we're not willfully wanting to go to Africa to build up anything. That's not our plight. It's not our home. I do not have allegiance nor jurisdiction to Africa. No matter how you guys talk and try to explain it to make it mean what you're saying, it's not so. And if you really felt about building up Africa like you guys are constantly bashing us about, you would actually convince the Africans to stay in Africa and build it up. But y'all don't say those words ever to them, which leads me to believe that you guys are hypocrites and you are with ill intention. And this is why I called you guys out a long time ago about why Pan-Africans were the biggest liars and scammers in our midst, and they needed to be dealt with and talked about. And here we are. The truth has exposed everything. You said that's not her real name, Stardust. Who's not their real name? Who are you talking about? Leonard says her father's papers aren't legit. They say, I know. I hope so that she can get the fuck on. I think that they should make an example out of her. Somalians weird as hell. Yeah, they are. I mean, it's one thing to stand true to yourself, but you don't have to be so weird to the point where you are acting like an alien, acting like you are the chosen people and all that. And now that you have all this stuff popping up all over the place and you're in threat of ICE detention, now all of a sudden you crying out to little old us, Black Americans, about helping you out, about having a truce. We never had a battle. We never had a battle. We have no motivation to help any immigrant because you guys are so disrespectful. You've been so blatantly disrespectful for years. Now you want us to run to the rescue and put on capes and care? No, you don't get it like that. BW or B Wade says savages, okay? Leonard says molester, pirates, and scammers. I know that's right. She's a The dim immigrant. Yes, definitely. Garvey's movement is outdated. People need to move on from that. They really do, Sheena. But that's the issue. There's so many people that make a lot of money, like Umar Johnson, just to say Pan-Africanism, just to say Africa and Africans over and over again. There's still people that's sending those private donations and other things to support him. And this is why he keeps coming up to us with the bullshit. Mysterium, what is your name? Mysterium Numius, and that is how Airbnb became a problem. What do you mean by that? Sheena says, I have heard a Pan-African say they prefer for the melanated immigrants to be here. They feel our time is up and that we need to go back to Africa. That's what I mean. And I'm trying to tell you, Sheena, they all believe we need to swap places with them. They all believe that we've been living too comfortable, although it ain't been that comfortable. And it hasn't been that long we've been feeling like we are Americans. Like literally, we came out of civil rights in the late 60s to fall into the crack era. And HIV came about around the 80s. And the gang and the drug infestation of our community has happened. We have never had a breather. We never had an opportunity to get ahead and have businesses thriving without them putting a wrench in our plans. But when the immigrants came over here, they didn't do and sabotage them like they do us. Let's just be honest. They didn't sabotage immigrants from coming over here and opening up gas stations and convenience stores and other businesses that they never got sabotaged. They were enabled. They were motivated. They were allowed to do without any forces attacking them. But when it came to Black Americans, all you seen was red tape and different just wrenches thrown in the plan to discourage us from having our own businesses so that we can live more independent from the government. They wanted to keep us disabled while putting and propping up immigrants over us. And this is why we see so many people that came in a matter of 10, 20 years. They're successful because they never have been blocked and barred from doing what they were allowed to do. And that is the truth. They came over here utilizing our civil rights. They came over here claiming to be Black in some cases. They claimed our name of African American and used scholarships and other set-asides. Then they dipped in and out of our identity and used their identity for their set-asides. How could they not be over us in a lot of regard? And that has been what the Democrats have allowed to have happen on purpose, trying to make our life a living hell so that we do go back to a place we're not from. This is why the return to Africa was promoted, because they wanted to keep that in the forefront of our brain and make us believe that we're not really truly American after all, and have us leave and break away from what our ancestors built and just hand it over to immigrants. I'm not down for that. And I'm so appreciative that Trump does know that the scam is real. He did signal in his last, when he had some type of crowd of people that he was talking with, and he says that the Blacks know about the scam. We do. We know about the scam. And he really has opened up our eyes a lot more than you realize. And I hope that we really understand what's really happening for real. Yes, super facts. They don't want to build up their homelands. They want ours. Exactly, Leonard Judah. That's exactly what it is. They want us to go away. They don't want us to talk about our accomplishments. They don't want us to remember our ancestors. They want us to start from scratch, blind to our history, and pretend like we're them so that they can have their way over us. And that's just not something I'm willing to do. So no illegal and no immigrant is deserving of claiming the birthright citizenship. It was not meant for you. It was meant for Indigenous American blacks. And I know that it's harsh to hear from a Black American, because you guys have really done a number of on many of us. You have told us we shouldn't be speaking against anybody Black, but I don't consider myself Black. I consider myself American first, okay? I'm American first. And y'all didn't want us to get to this point of thought, because that emboldens us to have more power within our own hands. And that's not what Pan-Africans want. That's not what immigrants want. That's what nobody wants. But that's what you guys are going to have to accept, especially once this decision is made in June for the birthright citizen hustle to dry up. How are you doing, African Goddess? Thank you for being here. Sheena says, we earn every right to be here. There is nothing that they can say or do about it. Exactly. But definitely, Sheena, I won't be surprised if they try. I won't be surprised if they try to minimize our birthright and claim that is outdated and we shouldn't have it applied to us. And that's why we have to stand firm on who we are and delineate from these people that are trying to undermine us and tell us that we are not worthy of becoming who we've been, which is American. That is the go-to by many immigrants, especially Africans, to try to tell us we're not true Americans, because they want us to be under their dominion. They want us to be under their direction and control. And I don't think that I should give them anything, because they're not my people like that. No, you're not. I'm sorry. You cannot sell an ancestor into bondage and leave them for dead for centuries and then think you can just waltz back into my life and pick up where you want to follow into. No, you don't have the right, Africans, to assume any connection to me like that. You never asked, and if you did, I would have said no thank you. I would have said it'd be cool to talk to you casually and whatnot, but to acquire the connection to me when you don't respect us, you don't respect our history, you don't respect our plight, you don't respect our fight, you don't like us like that, and yet you think somehow because you're black skinned that I'm supposed to respect you and love you and want you to be over me? No. Get over your people of Africa that actually left Africa, that's dying to make their way to UK and Canada and America and Mexico. Deal with your people before you try to deal with people that are not yours any longer. You cannot claim what you discarded. You cannot claim what you left for dead. By the grace of God, we survived. Not by your help. Not by nothing you've done. So you cannot just decide for me to become a part of my life. You don't have the right to do that. And that's why I'm so vehemently against Pan-Africanism, because it's like you guys are making us into slaves. Like we don't have a right to say what we feel. We don't have a right to describe what narrative we have. Who gives you the right to tell me anything in 2025? There's nothing that you can say to make me think that you have that right. African Goddess says birthright citizenship disappeared from most Western countries decades ago. Is that right? Sheena says we don't belong to them. We need to move on. We don't belong to them. We belong, Sheena, to ourselves. That's the part that they are not willing to accept. But we do not belong to Africans. And that's a hard pill for y'all to understand. We, Indigenous American Blacks, belong to God, ourselves, in this country, on our terms. On our terms. You cannot come and just decide for us to meddle. And since you guys have been doing that with Pan-African talk and the African Union, we have to look at y'all side eye, and we have to assume that you guys are trying to scam us yet again, because that seems to be the go-to. Through us, these scams are brought forth, and that's not right. African Goddess says, not sure about USA, but most Africans in Europe, myself included, when I was there, are dual citizens. Well, that's good, African Goddess. But there is a bill that they're trying to do away with dual citizens. And I'm not really upset about that. I really feel that America really is losing their hold on who is having allegiance to America by allowing so many immigrants and foreigners to come over here. And you're just going off of what they say and how they appear to make them just as justified to be in this soil as Americans when they have another place to claim and flag to hold. And they espouse other demented thoughts within their spirit that does not line up with preserving and protecting America. And if you put it out there to have only one dual allegiance, you will really maximize who is who in America. And I've been telling Black Americans, don't wish for a citizenship in Africa with everything going on the way it's going. What's most important to you, what you have on you that's more powerful than anything, is that blue passport that everybody is craving to have. And if you diminish what it is that you got, other people are going to pickpocket your ass. And don't be surprised when they do. You said not okay. They see us as slaves. Yes, they do, Sheena. They definitely, after all this time, that's the go-to with plenty of Africans. The first thing that they like to say is that you're nothing more than a slave. They try to play nice and smile and talk nice to you, but whenever they notice that you're not falling in line with the lies that they're trying to spread to you or trying to trick you with Pan-Africanism, then their true colors come out, and then they talk about you a slave baby. You've been raped. You're not pure. You're a mutt. All these things come out when it's all said and done. I know that they've been lying, and that's why I expose as many as I have on this platform and my other channel. African Goddess says Pan-Africanism is primarily about cooperation between African Caribbean countries, not about individuals returning to Africa. Well, they're trying to put that on there to include us again against our will, though. African Goddess, very disrespectful to include us in the African Union, so-called what do you call it, the sixth region, naming our imposed governmental name of African American, claiming that what monies we have should be diverted to Africa without even bothering to see if that's what we desire. That just tells you how many levels of deceit and disrespect and disregard many Africans and Pan-Africans are on. Because how are you going to speak about other people's money that they work for being applied to a continent that they know nothing about? And you think that that shit is fly to do. We're not your slaves, Pan-Africans. We're not your slaves, Africans. We are our own people of America, whether you like that or not. And Trump is going to do what we can't do ourselves because we have so many people confused. He's going to delineate us through this birthright citizenship to give us legitimacy here in America. And I think that that's going to be needed to uplift us and make us feel more prouder about who we are, because so many people for so long have told us we're nothing, including Pan-Africans and Africans primarily. They're the ones that have been coming for us all the time. Sheena says, yes, they do say that. I heard it myself. It is distasteful. Yes, it is. Yes, Africa. And African Goddess says, I think that an American interpretation of Pan-Africanism. Yeah, it is based off of what the movement was back in the 1800s. It never changed. They never been off of the same scheme to trick us out of our position with our birthright. That's all it is. Sheena says they want reparations for slavery to go to Africa. A dime would not go to descendants. That's exactly, Sheena, what I know they wanted to do. Remember when I first brought out that Ghana was up to trying to take our reparations and people thought I was crazy? On Alfredamus report said that. And then a year later, he came out and said he was trying to get our reparations towards Africa. He did a big old gathering of people from different nations of Africa and the Caribbeans and disallowed us to even be there to talk about our reparations towards Africa. And the reason I believe that they think they are deserving of our reparations, because in the same line of thinking, they want to be recognized like the white people that were given monies for giving up giving up slavery. In their mind, they think that they are deserving of the same thing given to them, because we sold you the product. We showed you those slaves. We were in business and we were gypped it out of having monies to build our own nations. And we want back what we didn't get for those slaves. They're not thinking in terms of us being their people. They're thinking in terms of us being their sold product and slaves. Yet they use this brother and sister nonsense talk to emotionally get you to believe in the lie that they're selling. But we all see how they act and how they talk. In fact, let me show you this one African guy that's been really, I'm going to talk about him another time. This Frank Zanu, everybody's talking about. I can't stand him. He triggers me. He is a guy from BN, and he's always got us on his mind because he really believes that he has the right to dictate what we do and how we feel and how we are, like typical Africans. Not all Africans do this, but too many of y'all do. Y'all really think that y'all are superior to us. You think that you should be wagging your finger and telling us what we're supposed to be about. And we're not owing you nothing. We are not reverencing you. We do not worship you. I'm not going to ever worship Africans. Sorry. Get over yourself. There is, where's this video at? Let me see if I can find it. Hold on, let me find this. If you could, by the way, please hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate that. If you enjoyed anything that I've said, even if you didn't, please support. Okay, yes. Now, this guy has been really talked about. Oops, hold on. That's not right. Let me turn this off. All right, here, take the listen to this. This is a guy from BN. He's living in America. He understands the power of the blue passport. And listen to what he has to say.
For those of you who have gone outside this country traveling, it is when you know that blue passport has some weight. I'm a naturalized American. When I was traveling with a passport of my own country, the immigration officers don't look at me twice. But whenever I yank out that blue passport, people smile. Someone to help me with my luggage. There has been a wave of people going to Ghana especially and coming back home to the United States. And I've seen plenty podcasts and Facebook entries. They made videos where they were saying, oh my God, what am I doing in this country, America? You go to Ghana, it's like you've come home, they love you. No, they don't. What you felt is because you're an American. Because if that is what they are, then the neighboring countries should say the same thing because of the passport, not because of me. Sometimes they don't even look at my credibility. They don't even look at my resume. I was coming back home through Switzerland, and we had to stop at Zurich for 4 hours. My phone was dying. Starbucks was packed, and you have to pay $8 for a coffee. So I wanted somewhere to rest and wait and charge my phone. I went upstairs, and I had the cart with my luggage, and I had the American passport in my hand. The VIP lounge was not packed. It wasn't filled early in the morning. And I said to the lady, I don't want to come in. Just take my phone, charge it for me. I'll come back and pick it up. She looked at the passport. You're an American? I said, yes. You're going to New York? I said, yes. He asked me to come in. And I stayed at the VIP until my flight. It wasn't because of me. This is the only country I know. Everywhere you go, every kid wants to be Taylor Swift or Beyonce. Other people are far luckier than us. From Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya. When things go wrong, they can seek refuge in America and survive and do better here. Now, Americans are creatures of comfort. You can't even survive in Canada, let alone Mexico next door. So you better protect this country and support any cause that will make my community beautiful and livable. That is my pledge to do as a citizen of this country that has done so much for so many people. Nothing wrong,
You heard him?
nothing wrong with America.
He's bigging up America. He is African from BN. And he's bigging up the blue passport. He knows the power influence of being an American. Yet you have people like him that wants us to stay so-called in our place and lowly look down to the ground and listen to his ass bitch about who we are and what we're doing here in America. But he has nothing on us because he's not a true American. I am. All I know is America. He can't say that. I will never give nobody the right to exclude me from owning and having ownership of the birthright citizenship that our ancestors actually fought and died over. Yet he will make us believe, if you listen to him, that we are not legitimate. There's nothing that we've done to cause him to be where he's at in America. And I will get to a video about him soon. But I want to end the video talking about Frederick Douglass one more time, because I really think, again, that Frederick Douglass was the best person to advocate for us. Before I play that, let me let you hear what this immigrant had to say, who I believe is second generation. But I want you to get an idea how immigrants are really thinking about the birthright citizenship, and they believe that they are owed and entitled to the birthright citizenship that's now up for debate. And the Supreme Court will hear the hearing coming up in the next 6 months. I want y'all to hear how casually he spins his tail about the birthright citizenship and why Black Americans need to wise up and claim your birthright citizenship.
What you're trying to tell me is that you're basically going to ban citizenship for everybody in America who's born on American soil, but the parents were immigrants, in the way where the parents were not American citizens to begin and not naturally born on U.S. soil.
Only for people who were just born on the soil. It's their only qualifier. So if your parents are citizens, you can get citizenship. I think you should automatically be a citizen when you're born. If you're born on the soil and perhaps your parents are permanent residents, then maybe that could qualify you as well. All right, guys, we're at the University of Washington, and today we are debating that birthright citizenship, also known as the just soil legal doctrine for citizenship, should be overturned or rescinded in the United States. This topic obviously coincides with Trump's recent executive order related to birthright citizenship, and I'd just like to thank everybody for the recent outpour of support on YouTube. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your comments, your likes, your shares, and your general support. And if you want more ways to support me, I've added links to my Discord, my Patreon, my Cash App, and my PayPal in the description below. Thanks, guys. Let's get into it.
I'm a first generation born here. My parents were immigrants.
Really?
Yeah.
You came here when you're like a baby or something?
I was born here. In terms of like, banning birthright citizenship, it's big to me.
Yeah, okay, so let's hear, are you're in favor of banning birthright citizenship?
I'm against it.
You're against banning it?
Yeah.
You think we should keep it?
We should keep it, yeah.
Okay, why do you think we should keep it?
Because,
Yeah,
because I feel like, I feel like, because, I'm a first generation American. Both my parents were immigrants. They fled the revolution in Iran. And so technically that classifies me as a birthright citizenship. So I was born with both dual citizenship in U.S. and Iran. And I feel like, there's people who, from other countries, like Iran or, I don't know, let's say, the whole Palestine-Israel conflict, Ukraine, there's places of war where they escape. America in general is built on the fundamental idea of, the American dream, where people, back, let's take the 1800s, right? The Irish potato famine. That's, people fled Ireland to come to America in order to have a great, great job opportunity, somewhere where they can have food, pursue their economic dreams, and, build a stable family here in America. We saw the same with the Italians in the late 1800s. A lot of, there's high Italian Jewish populations in New York. Nowadays you see it with Chinese immigrants, Indian immigrants, where they're pursuing economic opportunities. That's what America's built on. So taking away birthright citizenship, it's basically jeopardizing the future of the workforce in America, future.
Did you notice he did not bother to mention anything in reference to Black Americans? He skipped over everything pertaining to us, who is the originator for why the birthright citizenship is even here. He skipped and talked about every other group of people and did not utter any semblance of acknowledgement on the indigenous American Black. I just want y'all to see how easy they're very disrespectful and dismissive of our contributions here in America, and the fact that that birthright citizenship was meant for us. And he's not even acknowledging it. Let me rewind it a little bit more just to show y'all why I don't care about whether or not they are going to have that acknowledgement brought to them. They don't care to acknowledge me. They don't care about our blood, sweat, and tears to get the birthright citizenship for them to be able to hijack and scam. And he can't even bring himself to acknowledge us.
Let's take the 1800s, right? The Irish potato famine. That's, people fled Ireland to come to America in order to have a great, great job opportunity, somewhere where they can have food, pursue their economic dreams, and, build a stable family here in America. We saw the same with the Italians in the late 1800s. A lot of, there's high Italian Jewish populations in New York. Nowadays you see it with Chinese immigrants, Indian immigrants, where they're pursuing economic opportunities. That's what America's built on. So taking away birthright citizenship, it's basically jeopardizing the future of the workforce in America, future economic opportunities. For me, I'm blessed. Honestly, I'm blessed with American citizenship. I could have been in Iran, where, 18 up, there's a mandate serving for the military. I could have been in the military right now, not to have as.
And he should. He has other allegiances, even being born in America. He still is a dual citizenship in Iran, and he is the primary person why that bill is being introduced to snatch away one of the citizenships because it does conflict to allegiance to one jurisdiction of the Constitution. He is a primary person that would always have ill will in the back of his mind because he has dual allegiances based off of wherever he's at the moment in his life, or whatever he's trying to do, or whatever his intentions are on. It's not the same thing as a homegrown American that's been here for umpteen generations. He cannot compare to my allegiance to America, because I don't have allegiance to no other place but America. All I know is America. There is a difference. Who should have the birthright? The person that has the most allegiance and the people that actually died for the right to have it, which is my people, not his, but him being from Iraq. Iraq is claiming to have the birthright citizenship for him. And this needs to be dealt with. It has to be.
There's an education not be here at the University of Washington. And yeah, that's basically the beginnings of my, just the basic foundation for my opinions.
Yeah, sure.
What's your take?
Okay, so were your parents, by the time they had you, by the time you were born, were your parents both like naturalized American citizens?
I think, they obtained American citizenship before I was born. My mom, my mom left, she was like 9 years old when the revolution happened. She moved to Germany for like 8 years, moved to Seattle area her junior year of high school, and then went to University of Washington for undergrad, residency, medical school. And, my dad, he moved, so he served in the military there, and then he went to college, moved to New York in 94. He was there during 9/11, moved to Boston a couple years, then met my mom, moved out here, got married, had me and my sister.
Yeah, so what I would say is that you should be an American citizen, but not because you were born geographically at random on American soil. I think that you should be an American citizen because both of your parents were American citizens when you were born. I think if you're born of American citizens, that should make you an American citizen, even if they immigrated here. If they were naturalized as American citizens, which your parents were, that makes you an American citizen in my view. Right? So just being born on the soil, I don't think does. You said that you think that America was built on immigration and the American dream and bringing people here and blah, 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 whatever. And I agree with you, but just because people aren't American citizens because they're born on the soil doesn't mean that you can't continue to naturalize American citizens out of foreign populations. So let's say there's like a lot of doctors from Nigeria who want to come here and we need doctors. We can still naturalize them and make them American citizens. But if you say, if you're just born on this soil, you're an American citizen, you now risk that a lot of people just skip the line, come here, they don't have any good tangible skills that contribute to the workforce, and the government effectively has no mitigation procedures for preventing that from happening, and they actually have less control over the workforce. And I think that jeopardizes the American workforce a lot more because you end up with a lot more people who potentially drain the system, and the government has no control over who is able to get that citizenship and who isn't, because all it requires is just hop the border and drop anchor and you're good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. No.
Again, no mention of Black Americans, no acknowledgement of our existence, one iota. Those immigrants, most of them don't give a flying F about us, but they want us suddenly to care about them. But I don't, because I know that they don't care about me and mine, so I'm returning the same favor. Not only that, millions upon millions of people are illegally here. It makes no sense for me to be in mass support of immigration because it harms Black Americans the most, the indigenous Americans the most. It keeps us at the bottom and locked down at the bottom. So that's why I'm not for leaving the birthright citizenship as is, and I am in support of Trump dealing with all issues involving immigration, because in the end, it should support Black Americans and Americans overall to have a better sitting and potential to have more jobs, more housing, more benefits, taking care of the vets, taking care of disabled people. right now, the way it was going was dismissing the Americans and choosing illegals over the Americans by the Democrats. That's what they thought they were going to have going on. And I'm so glad that Trump won for this. Now I'm going to end this now with the lessons of the hour. And the lessons of the hour was writings by Frederick Douglass, who reiterated the significance of us being American. He was against this notion of us being African and going to Africa and going to do the Go Back to Africa movement. He was definitely anti that, because he knew that going to Africa was just a guess. It was, you had no guarantees. You were starting all over again. But you did so much in another land where your forefathers and mothers had a lot to do with the advancement of that situation. Hold on for a minute. I want you guys to hear a reenactment of some of what he had to say.
Nothing of the injustice which this measure demands. Africa, according to her colonization advocates, is by no means modest in her demands upon us.
Well, let me rewind this a little bit more. It's a little bit too far up. Hold on, this should be it.
Cause gained in the war is now the cause lost in peace. The landowners of the South want the labor of the Negro on the hardest terms possible. They once had it for nothing. They now want it for next to nothing. To accomplish this, they have contrived three ways. The first is to rent their land to the Negro at an exorbitant price per annum and compel him to mortgage his crop in advance to pay this rent. The laws under which this is done are entirely in the interest of the landlord. He has a first claim upon everything produced on the land. The Negro can have nothing without the consent of the landlord. As the Negro is at the start poor and empty-handed, he has to draw on the landlord for meat and bread to feed himself and family while his crop is growing. The landlord keeps books. The Negro does not. Hence, no matter how hard he may work or how hard saving he may be, he is in most cases brought in debt at the end of the year, and once in debt, he is fastened to the land as by hooks of steel. If he attempts to leave, he may be arrested under the order of the law. Another way to perpetuate slavery under emancipation, and which is still more effective, is the practice of paying the laborers with orders on the store instead of lawful money. By this means, money is kept out of the hands of the Negro, and the Negro is kept entirely in the hands of the landlord. He cannot save money because he gets no money to save. He cannot seek a better market for his labor because he is by that vicious order system already in debt and therefore already in bondage. Thus he is riveted to one place and is in some sense a slave for a man to whom it can be said, you shall work for me for what I choose to pay you and how I shall choose to pay you. That man is in fact a slave, though he may be called a free man. Now, my friends, this brings us to a final proposition, held up as the solution of the race problem. It is the proposition to colonize the colored people of America in Africa. Happily, this scheme will be defeated, both by its impolicy and by its impracticability. It is all nonsense to talk about the removal of 8 million of the American people from their homes in America to Africa. The expense and hardships, to say nothing of the cruelty attending such a measure, would make success impossible. The American people are wicked, but they are not fools. They will hardly be disposed to incur the expense, to say nothing of the injustice which this measure demands. Africa, according to her colonization advocates, is by no means modest in her demands upon us. She calls upon us to send her only our best men. She does not want our riffraff. The colonization advocates want not only the best, but millions of the best. Better still, they want the United States government to vote the money to send them there. They do not seem to see that if the government votes money to send the Negro to Africa, that the government may also employ means to complete the arrangement and compel us to go. Now I hold that the American Negro owes no more to the Negroes in Africa than he owes to the Negroes in America. You know, my friend, there are millions of needy people over there, but there are millions of needy people over here as well. And the millions in America need intelligent men of their number to help them, as much as intelligent men are needed in Africa to help her people. We have a fight on our hands right here. A fight for the redemption of the race. And a blow struck successfully for the Negro in America is a blow struck for the Negro in Africa. For until the Negro is respected in America, he need not expect consideration elsewhere. All this native land talk, however, is nonsense. The native land of the American Negro is America. His bones, his muscles, his sinews are all American. His ancestors for 270 years have lived, labored, and died on American soil. And millions of his posterity have inherited Caucasian blood. It is pertinent, therefore, to ask, in view of this admixture, as well as in view of other facts, where the people of this mixed race are to go. For their ancestors are white and black, and it will be difficult to find their native land anywhere outside of the United States of America. But the worst thing, perhaps, about this colonization nonsense is that it throws over the Negro a mantle of despair. It leads him to doubt the possibility of his progress as an American citizen. It also encourages popular prejudice with the hope that by persecution or by persuasion, the Negro can finally be dislodged and driven from his natural home. It forces upon the Negro the idea that he is forever doomed to be a stranger and a sojourner in the land of his birth. All this is hurtful because it sets the Negro to groping everlastingly after the impossible. Every man knows that home is the fountainhead, the inspiration, the foundation, the main support, not only of all social virtue, but of all motives to human progress. No people can prosper or amount to much unless they have a home or the hope of a home. A man who has not such an object in view, either in possession or in prospect, is a nobody and will never be anything else. To have a home, the Negro must have a country. And he is an enemy to the moral progress of the Negro who calls upon him to break up his home in this country in order to find an uncertain home in Africa. Colonization is no solution, but an evasion. It is not repentance, but simply putting the wronged ones out of our presence. It is not atonement, but banishment. Not love, but hate. Its reiteration and agitation only serves to fan the flame of popular prejudice and to add insult to injury. The righteous judgment of mankind will say, if the American people could endure the Negro's presence while a slave, they certainly can and ought to as a free man. Americans hear this and hear it plainly. We are here, and we are here to stay.
That's what I'm talking about. Anyone that comes to America that cannot rock with Frederick Douglass' assertions of what the birthright citizenship is meant for to us, if they try to undermine and disallow us from having our birthright and to be proud Americans on this American soil, I don't give a flying fuck about you. Literally. I wish all bad things happen to you under the sun, because we were first and we shall stay, regardless of what your opinion is and your ideology or your trickery or your scams and all the other things that are in between all of it. Frederick Douglass is the beacon of advocacy. Anyone talking against what he was on, you're against me. And the guy that spoke about the passport from Bien, surprisingly enough, I haven't heard him bring up about the attempted coup of Bien, because he's too big trying to become who I am. He's too big to talk about Bien because he's in America trying to ridicule Black Americans. And I will be doing a live about him. A lot of people have been talking about him, and the reason why I haven't gotten to it sooner is because every time I hear his voice, he triggers me. But let me show you where he's from and why he desires to stay his ass in America versus go back to his failed Bien. But these people want us to exalt Bien and Nigeria and Ghana and all these places we ain't never been and we ain't trying to go. Just like they ain't.
At local markets, business confidence has returned as traders make up for what was lost in the early days of the attempted coup.
For the moment, everything is back to normal, and that's very good for the country, and we're happy.
The government says the mutiny was homegrown, but it's also investigating possible external links.
If investigations allow us to trace it back to a foreign country or foreign forces that contributed to it, we will also, within the framework of international cooperation, express our disapproval and condemnation to these actors.
Officials acknowledge casualties during the mutiny, but won't say how many.
President Patrice Talon survived this coup attempt and looks set to complete his term in office with a strong backing from regional bloc ECOWAS, whose forces have been deployed to ensure Benin's 34-year-old democracy is protected. But the coup attempt has shaken the small West African nation's assumption that its democracy has come to stay.
Analysts say quick intervention by Nigeria and Ivory Coast saved ECOWAS from disintegrating further.
Nigeria's prompt reaction to Benin's request is explained not only by the fact that Nigeria hosts the headquarters of ECOWAS, but also because it is a regional power. A threat of instability at its doorstep would inevitably spill over to both Nigeria and ECOWAS.
For many, the failed coup is a reminder that stability here can be fragile. Benin's leaders are promising to tighten security and restore confidence, while ordinary people hope that promise will spare them another scare. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Cotonou, Benin.
But he didn't bring up anything about what's going on in Benin. Again, everybody wants to become us. They want to replace us, and they want us to diminish the birthright citizenship and its meaning that was meant for specifically Indigenous American Blacks. Now, let me read what it says according to American Immigration Council. The birthright citizenship is a legal principle under which citizenship is automatically granted to individuals upon birth. There are two forms of birthright citizenship: ancestry-based citizenship and birthright-based citizenship. Birthplace-based citizenship, which grants citizenship based on place of birth, is formally referred to as jus soli, a Latin term meaning a right of the soil. In the United States, birthright citizenship is granted by the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Specifically, it states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So just think about people flying over here 9 months pregnant. They came from Iraq. They came from Africa. They came from the Caribbean. They came from South America or wherever they came from. They were a part of that jurisdiction. They were born from that homeland. They were working. They were under the laws and government, and they escaped their jurisdiction and slid into America in a blink of an eye to gain and to force the so-called notion that this Birthright Citizenship Amendment, 14th Amendment, which means under the jurisdiction thereof, which is the stickler part of what the Constitution speaks on. And that's going to be the go-to of the President Trump to emphasize what is the meaning of subject to the jurisdiction thereof. People showing up to have a baby, you had no jurisdiction over any of those people. They took control onto themselves to manipulate the system and garner the usage of a birthright not meant for them. This principle was confirmed by the 1898 Supreme Court, United States versus Wong Kim Ark, which clarified that children born in the United States to immigrant parents are citizens regardless of their parents' immigration status. The U.S. employs a combination of unrestricted birthplace-based citizenship, granting granting citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil, regardless of their parents' status, with exceptions like children of foreign diplomats. Why wouldn't it apply to foreign people? If it applies to foreign diplomats not being able to utilize that, it should apply to foreign people. And mind you, this comes from American Immigration Council, so they have a different lens of view because they're trying to spin it to make it apply to them. So I don't believe in all of what they're writing on here, but I'm reading it. Restricted ancestry-based citizenship, extending citizenship to children born abroad to U.S. citizens provided statutory requirements are met. Globally, birthright citizenship is common in the Americas, but less so in other regions. The historical foundation of this principle in the United States reflects its aim to eliminate legal inequalities and promote inclusivity. Again, I think that Trump is in the right lane of thought. I hope that he does stop and block all the scammers of all foreigners that have been able to get away with scamming for a very, very long time. And now it is affecting the actual Americans of America to have this competition with foreigners. And that should not be allowed to go. So no, Llhan, Omar, the 14th Amendment is not meant for you nor your people. It's meant for mine. It's meant for us, the Americans that actually earned the right to have it. So with that being said, I hope that you guys liked the live. Please support by hitting the like, so share, and subscribe to the channel. I will return maybe in a few days with another live if I can. And we'll talk some more about what is going on out here. Protect yourself if I don't come back, especially for the holiday, especially for New Year's Eve. Do be mindful about where you are and be mindful not to really be among crowds of people where you cannot be able to get away. You do not want to be trapped. People are looking to do harm to us, like I reported in the first video. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more to come with that mess, and people are lashing out because they're upset about what Trump's doing, and they would like to distract and deflect on doing something horrendous in America. And that's why we need to be very careful and protect yourself wherever you are. Thank y'all for watching. My phone's about to die. That's why I'm not going to read any more of the comments, but I appreciate everybody that has participated in the chat room. Thank y'all all for moderating. I appreciate everybody that's been having my back for as long as you have. I really appreciate that. Thank you, and God bless. Bless up.